What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Dre Davis. I'm back with your boys, Cornelius Fenderson, Anthony Likes, and this is the Elephant in the Room podcast. This week, we got a slate of early season games that are really causing some disruption in the top 25 and some conferences alike. A lot of games that we saw over this past weekend that went well for some teams, went bad for some other teams, but mostly overall, it went good for us this week, fellas, because we came out with a win. I don't know about y'all, man, but I didn't get to see the whole game, but I did. As we talked about last week, I did go in person last week, and I had raving reviews about Ty's performance last week, even though it was of ULM. I said after week one with the Florida State game that I didn't think that Ty was the problem. I still don't think he's the problem. He came out against a tougher test, but still kind of a passover team in Wisconsin. But before we go on the road and we get our bye week going into the Georgia week, I just want to know what you guys got from this past or yesterday's game against Wisconsin, 11 o'clock game, much earlier than what we used to. But you guys see anything that y'all didn't like? You know, y'all probably watched more of the game than I did.
I just want to say 3 games in, 3 starts in, we got our guy. I might go on a whole tirade. I feel like I ain't going to get into that yet. But I'm going to just go over Ty Simpson. I wrote it down. Ty Simpson's last 2 games as far as passing-wise. 41 of 46, 608 yards, 7 touchdowns, no turnovers, fumble nor interception. So that's a major upgrade from what we've seen these last 2 seasons at that quarterback position. There were a lot of throws, even in the loss to Florida State. There were some throws that were made, a lot of throws with anticipation, a lot of passes across the middle of the field that we also didn't really get to see the past 2 seasons as well. I think we still need, I know Wisconsin, they're one of those big teams that rely on their linemen on both sides of the ball. So like the run game really wasn't there, but I still think we still need to just lean on it. Eventually you'll break off a big run eventually, but I still think we're still a little bit too pass happy. But as far as the quarterback goes, we have our guy, and I like the production from the receiving core. We still got to catch the ball. Even in a win, like even in a game that was out of hand, you would still like to see production. You don't want to be lackadaisical with because that messed with Ty's stats. He could have been 26 of 29 and had like 400 yards and possibly a 5th touchdown. Stuff like, we got to look at stuff like that, and we might need these plays. Yeah, we were up in this game big, but that might be a situation to where we're down 7 points, 10 points, and we need a score to get some momentum back on our side. Nice outing by Bray Hubbard. He was one of the guys that was under fire with his efforts in the first game even though he was not going to catch the guy, you still want to see your guys giving 110% on each play. So he was one of the guys that showed up, flying around the football, making big hits, gets 2 interceptions. He baited the quarterback on his first interception. He acted like he was going to play up, then he dropped back in coverage and just snatched the ball out of the air. So it was a lot of things I saw from Bray Hubbard. As far as the pass rush, it still kind of concerns me. I know we got 4 sacks, but it's still like sometimes still overshooting the gap at times. And when it came to the run, like they didn't really get big yards on the run, but we still was getting pushed like 3 to 4 yards and making it easy for them on those 2nd and 3rd down, something that I feel like can be fixed over time. But overall, excellent performance. And I know, like I said, my panic meter was at a 3, and then it dropped after a ULM win, and now I'll go back all the way to a 0. Overall, grade A performance, minus a few things here and there. And also, I want to say good job on not having many penalties. That's been an Achilles heel with Alabama, even the latter years of the Saban era. A lot of penalties. So I will say good job on that in that regard, and I'll let you guys attack it. That's all I had to say.
Far I was able to watch majority of the game on yesterday, and I'll start with the defensive side. Defense, they played good. They came out with a lot of energy. They're physical. Like Anthony said, Bray Hubbard had his best game of the season thus far. So to wrap up the defense, they just did a good job overall. Ty Simpson, yeah, like Anthony said, he's the guy. Went out again, 24 for 29, 382 yards, averaging 13.2 yards per pass with four touchdowns and 0 interceptions. To go into week 3 with no interceptions or turnovers as a first year starter, that is big. The rushing game, my opinion, I think they kind of shy away from the run game is because, yeah, they giving Kevin Riley a shot, but outside of him, I don't think they really trust the others just yet. That's why I think they're leaning more on the pass instead of the run. Going to the receiver, you have Jeremy Bernard, Mr. Reception, 62 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Horton, the big guy of the bunch, 5 for 48 and a touchdown. And last but not least, Mr. Williams had his welcome back game on yesterday. 5 receptions, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That one play where he ran in, I want to say it was kind of a flood route, or it might have been an out route, caught it, was able to make both guys miss and go score a touchdown. That was big. I think
the back shoulder. I think that was a slot fade or some type of rub. It looked like some type of rub or a slot fade on that one. When he caught it back shoulder.
Yeah, either one, he made it look.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem with his drops is one, when he has the ball in his hand, he tends to look upfield. So I noticed yesterday with the drop, he let it get right here. And we all played receiver before. If you let the ball get right here into the face mask, you're going to drop it every time because it's going to bounce off the face mask. But other than that, if he continues to work on improving, catching and staying consistent, he's going to be good. Nard, like I said, consistent. I don't even think he has a drop yet. Isaiah Horton, they finally getting the big guy involved. I think going into SEC play, we're going to see a lot more of him because you're going to see a lot bigger corners in the SEC. So having that 6'4" guy out there on the island by himself, that's going to cause matchup problems. Lazio Brooks, I think they found their number 4 guy in him, their 4th receiver. I think he's going to be the guy that comes in the SEC play, makes some plays along with Ryan in the slot. But back to Ty Simpson. Ty keeps playing like he's playing and not turning the ball over. I think Bama can do it. If the offense continue to play how they're playing, I don't see anybody beating them. Just looking at the other teams defensively in the SEC, seems like nobody can stop the pass. So the fact that we are up to speed with time and throwing the ball, we got a shot now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got for.
I want to piggyback on that because I agree. I know what you were saying about, us being pass happy, but I think that comes with Ty getting real game reps, getting real game timing, getting real game chemistry. I I I want to say this early because later on in the season, this may be a talking point for later. I don't want to take, these completions that we are getting for granted because Ty is completing passes at a very high rate. He has a very good completion percentage. He has chemistry with a lot of receivers. Like fans said, Ryan comes back yesterday. He catches 2 touchdowns. Could have been 3. I thought maybe he was just still hearing phantom footsteps, but at the same time, like you said, it's just the fundamentals of it. Letting the ball get to your chest, letting the ball get to your face mask, things like that. Not things that you want to see, but he's a superstar in as far as at the collegiate level. So some of the fundamentals they apply to him, but they don't because he makes spectacular plays. Like actually, both of his touchdowns, they weren't passes in the end zone. They were both plays where he made athletic plays to still help us in the passing game, which is what a lot of our receivers do. But I just from looking at the box score and looking at the highlights, I am a little disappointed that there wasn't more involvement from the run game because just as we are establishing a pass game, uh, as we continue to go through our SEC schedule, in 2 weeks when we go to Georgia, when we come back home when we play Vandy, those are games that are going to be really important where we need to establish the run. We need to have a lead guy, and I know we're still waiting for our lead guy to come back fully healthy, but we need a lead guy in the backfield right now that's going to help us in some of those critical moments when it starts to get a little cold. We play those night games. Somebody that on 3rd and 2 is going to stick their nose across the first down line and get us a first down when it's needed. Don't really want to have to rely on Ty in that regard to always make a play with his arm or his football smart. So I think fam every week so far has focused on the defense. I think, and you've been focusing on the coaching. I want to see the running game be established. I think that's something that's just kind of built into the Alabama DNA in the early years, and it's hard not to talk about it, but in the
It's
early
just a
years
southern. It's really a southern thing, honestly.
in
It
the
ain't even
early
just
years
about.
of Saban in high school football and Pee Wees in the state of Alabama, if there's somebody in the backfield that wants to put their shoulder down and run through somebody, you're gonna win the ball game. And so I think that's something, like I said, we don't have a lead man yet, and I know our guy Jam is hurt for the time being, but I hope as we, get healthy over this week, take a break. I hope they bring the intensity to practice this week and next week because it's going to be a long 2 weeks. And the gauntlet in the SEC around us is still, exploding by the minute. But right now, we need to focus on one game at a time. It's just the 1-0 mindset each and every week coming in with the 1-0 mindset. And our next biggest test is against Georgia. So, a quality win nonetheless, especially at home, early game. You want to be focused, come in, get the win, and keep moving. So, yeah.
It's overall, like I said, overall grade A.
Well,
Especially these last 2 weeks, like you
hey,
want to build on this, and I don't really got too much to say on Alabama because we going into a bye, so it's gonna be kind of slow as far as Alabama football's sake. But we could take it to another game, whichever one
yeah. I was
y'all
gonna
want to dive into.
transition. I was gonna transition into another early morning game where I feel like a team that is in a similar situation as us fell asleep on their opponent in Clemson, who was walked off there in Georgia. That's a trap game of sorts. I feel like in the first 3 weeks of Clemson's schedule, their schedule makers didn't really like them going on the road to LSU in a night game, coming back
Oh, they were at
home and
home.
having
They were at home.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
being at home against LSU in a night game, which was the perfect. I'm sorry, then was the perfect setup for them, but ended up backfiring on them. Playing another tune-up game against Troy, which you ended up
Tuned up.
struggling in, more than you tuned up, and so now you go on the road against a very dangerous Georgia Tech team with the quarterback that I feel like if they had 4 slots to have seats at in New York, I feel like Haynes King would have one of those seats by the end of the season. Um, Georgia Tech hard fought win. I think Dabo may have gone home with 2 timeouts or so, with quite a bit of time. He let the time run down before the kick,
Yes.
and we can be overcritical. We were critical of Dion a couple of weeks ago. First, I want to talk about that. Is there any issue that you guys have with Dabo going home with 2 timeouts there, not giving his team any type of opportunity to get the ball back or anything?
I don't think like as far as a in game scenario, I don't think that's my problem with Clemson. I think my problem with Clemson now is as we see how college football has changed, he slowly adapted. But I feel like still, he's even a situation like this, you come in, you get hyped up. You get hyped up saying this team, this is one of the teams that can possibly be contending for compete for a national championship. You lose the first game to LSU, which is okay. I mean, you're at home, but still at the same time, it's SEC versus ACC versus SEC, two big name programs who've won championships within the last 10 years. Okay, you get that. So that's pretty much a toss up in itself, but it's like your following game, your follow up game, you go out there and you're down 16-0 or 16-3 at halftime to Troy, which very well, like you said, Dre, like we were in that situation, but like that very well could have been us versus ULM. So, I'm glad we came out the way we came out and not come out flat. But like I said, I don't think it's more of a in-game situation. I think this team is kind of fell down a tier. Like I don't think they're an A tier or S tier program anymore. I think they're more of a B tier team, like the Clemson that we knew before Dabo took over during the Tommy Bowden days, where they were just winning 8-9 games, and then the dam finally broke, and they got Tommy Bowden up out of there. I think that's where we're going, slowly but surely. Will this team continue to win a lot of games? Yes, they will. But as far as being nationally relevant, outside of maybe preseason hype, I think those days are over. I'm just go ahead and declare it dead. Like I said, I think they'll still win 9 or 10 games. I'll get that. I'll give them that because of the ACC. But as far as, like I said, competing on a national stage, I don't think they'll get there. And the only reason why I can see them actually getting into the playoffs is a scenario like last season. You win their conference. But even then, I still don't think that might not be enough. Some years, depending on if it expands, the playoff expands. But so that's where I'll go with that as far as that. So, but like I said, I don't think really a coaching situation is going to fix that because they very well could have used all their time out, still lost that game. And then, like, you're still going to have the problem cultural wise or program wise over like my in-game management, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I say I don't really see an in-game management. And then Georgia Tech is one of those teams that you can't sleep on now. Like, I like what Brent Key is doing. Haynes King, I hope he got a guy that can fill in and maintain what Haynes King is doing or exceed what Haynes King is doing. But right now, just like I said, Brent Key is building something up there in Atlanta. So we'll see what that goes. But as far as Clemson, back to the mediocrity. So, and that's not really, I mean, you can say coaching, but that's not an in-game thing. That's just more of a, hey, we might need to break this down and build it back up, whether it's with Dabo or whether it's with another new fresh mind. So that's the way I see it with Clemson.
That's
Well,
what
I'm gonna just say this about Clemson. If Clemson gonna have Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence, they won't be elite again because the last time Clemson won a championship was 2018,
Yes.
and they had Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yes.
Then
Trevor
let's go
Lawrence
back
and
to
Brent Venables calling the defense.
Brent Venables. Let's go back to when they won their first one. They had Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
And even when those two were at quarterback, they still struggled at times with teams like Georgia Tech, Austin College, this, that, and the third, other teams like that. So my point is, they're still the same Clemson team. They just don't have that generational quarterback. So they consistent with being mediocre. They just don't have that elite quarterback that can take them to the next level.
So you're saying they were just winning in spite of, like those quarterbacks were winning in spite of, pretty much like a Deshaun Watson and a Trevor Lawrence.
I think so.
Let's look at Alabama. The whole saving run, at least each quarterback that started won a national championship. The last one was Bryce Young, but he didn't start. He has a national championship. Just think about that. In saving 17 years, almost all of his starters at quarterback had a national championship.
That's right. Yeah.
Even one with like a Greg McElroy, a Jake Coker. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get that. Blake Sims got us to like the first ever college ball playoff. Yeah. So,
but and that's why when I made that statement, that's why I said, they're kind of in the same situation as us, because just like you alluded to and I alluded to, let's flip the roles and let's say that we come out the gate and we go 0-2, and we lose to ULM. We're having a completely different conversation right now. Overall. Yeah, and that's the conversation that's being had today on a Sunday in Clemson. And I just checked. the AP poll before we started up, and Clemson also is no longer ranked as it stands right now, which is going to cause some grumbles in the locker room, some grumbles, in the stands for fans. I mean, it's kind of a big deal. It is right up there in line with the Alabama fan base. Except the difference in our mediocrity per se and their mediocrity is the fact that we had to make a coaching change. They haven't even made a coaching change. Like you said, it's a culture, it's a generational thing. They had two potentially generational, especially college wise, generational quarterbacks that really made a difference for them. And it's unfortunate, but Clemson, just like with a lot of teams, have a really tough schedule ahead.
They got Syracuse.
They still got to play that,
that's
and
not
that's no
easy.
pushover
That's
of a
not
game.
easy. Yeah, that's not easy either.
And they still have to play SMU. They later in the season they have to play Florida State, which you don't know how they'll look by that point in the season. And although South Carolina, who I think is a game that we'll talk about later, but South Carolina is still a game on their schedule. So a lot to be, desired there for Clemson now already with 2 losses and none to be afforded. So we'll definitely, keep our eyes on them. And so since we are talking about one of their future opponents, and that is one of the games that we were wanting to highlight, South Carolina got blanked at home by Vanderbilt. 31-7 in a night game. Lenore Sellers was temporarily knocked out of that game for a second with potential concussion like symptoms. It's just not, quite what we expected, I guess I can say, from South Carolina. I had high expectations for them coming into the season. I know in a couple weeks after the Georgia game, we got to see Vanderbilt, and I feel like that's going to be a tricky game for us. But we need to focus on one thing at a time. But
one at a time, yes.
Diego is keeping his momentum from last season rolling. He rolls into South Carolina, gets another big win. What does that say about Vanderbilt? What does that say about South Carolina? What does that say about where the SEC is right now?
I think South Carolina. I mean, I think when you got a quarterback like that, I think you're always an injury away depending on how your season can go. A and B, I think Sellers is not playing because Ryan Williams got a concussion in the Florida State game, did not play the following week. So I don't think Sellers plays on the road against Missouri, who's coming in hot, 23rd ranked. I don't think they win that game. And there are a lot of people even saying, even with Sellers probably fully healthy, Vanderbilt will still win that game. But I think like we talked about previously with Georgia Tech, Clark Lee and Vanderbilt, they're doing something over there as well. Those two teams kind of mirror each other as far as how to their play styles offensively with the quarterbacks, can make plays with their legs and manage the game pretty well and keep it clean as far as limited turnovers or no turnovers at all. So those are two teams in their respective conferences, Vanderbilt in the SEC and Georgia Tech in the ACC, that is like we talked, no pushover. So Vanderbilt, I'm not surprised. I will honestly say I'm not surprised. They're 3-0 now. They're in the AP polls. So yeah, they're like you said, they're building this momentum. But I think South Carolina, I like Clemson. I mean, South Carolina's kind of been in mediocrity for years ever since Spurrier retired, honestly. But as far as I know, this is one of those years, especially with South Carolina, how they finished the year last season and only losing to Alabama by a missed 2-point conversion or even a Lenore Sellers overthrow earlier in that particular game, and they probably could have won. But but this time around, I don't think they're a playoff team now with that loss, and then with their upcoming schedule without Sellers, depending on how long they will be without Sellers, and at least for this weekend. So I think this second game, especially how it's looking with the rest of the SEC, I think with this second game, they lose this second game. I think as far as competing for a playoff spot, I think they're out of that race. Lenore Sellers was a Heisman candidate. He's essentially going to miss a game and a half now, so I think that kind of pushes him down the list on as far as Heisman contention goes. So there's that. Virginia Tech just fired their coach, and Shane Beamer played at that school. Coach was on the staff under his father, who was the head coach for almost 30 years at that school. So we will see if Shane Beamer will be on the move, but we don't get on that yet. We'll let the season play out before we, continue to talk about that. But that's all I have as far as South Carolina, and maybe Vanderbilt can be one of these dark horse teams to a dark horse SEC team, sneaky SEC team. I don't think they will, but I will say they can win 8 or 9 games this year. I will say that. But like I said with Haynes King, as far as I hope Brent Key has a replacement, I hope Clark Lee has a replacement for Diego Pavia as well, because to maintain or exceed that level of quarterback play. And that's pretty much all I got with those two.
With South Carolina, it showed last night that if Sellers is not on the field, their chances of winning are pretty much slim to none. Going back to Vanderbilt, Pavia is that guy, but I think once they come to T-Town, I think Bama's gonna go ahead and put an end to a Cinderella story because I just don't see him. And I said him because he single-handedly beat him last year. I don't see him doing it in Tuscaloosa, especially if Alabama go handle business at Georgia, then come back to Tuscaloosa pissed off because we lost to this team last year and we at home. I just don't see it. I think that's where the hype will end in Tuscaloosa. That's all I really got on those two teams.
Yeah, that's also quarterback situations, like y'all said, for both teams that are really, really interesting because Sellers, who was quoted infamously saying that he didn't want to transfer over this past offseason in regards to money. I know this is one game that we're talking about, but an interesting situation to keep up with Sellers, because like Finn said, without Sellers on the field, completely different team. With him on the field, they're completely a different team. So and Diego's Diego right now. We only got to worry about him for the one game that we got him right now, and then from there Vanderbilt I have to go in a different direction. But speaking of quarterback play, speaking of some top tier quarterbacks in the SEC, we're gonna go back towards the middle of the day. In a game that nobody wanted to win, everybody wanted to lose. That came down to overtime over there in Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Rocky Flop, man. Rocky Flop.
So I was busy in the morning. By the time I wasn't busy anymore, this was the game that I caught the bulk of, the majority of. Very high scoring. I can't really say the offenses were not efficient, but because they really were. I also cannot say the defenses did not step up because at times for both teams, they both did. There was mistakes by both quarterbacks. There was mistakes coaching wise. Now this is one that's a little different from Clemson early in the day that I was hypercritical of. Unlike Dabo not taking a timeout, the difference in the Georgia Tech and Clemson game and the Georgia and Tennessee game was with 7 seconds left, Josh Hopel had 2 timeouts that he went home with, and he put a guy in a situation that has never kicked any type of game winner ever in his life, from high school to junior high to pee-wees or anything like that. And you put him out here in front of 100,000 people, even though they're his own home fans. He did not wake up yesterday at 8 o'clock in the morning. He did not go to prayer breakfast. He did not go to pregame. He didn't go to treatment or anything like that. He did not go through pregame workouts yesterday saying, I'm going to kick a game winner today. We just going to be honest. He's never done it, and he didn't think yesterday was a situation where he was going to be in that situation. So I was a little more critical of the coaching in that game there at the end by not centering up. Okay, so unfortunately in that last sequence, I know there was a pass, a run for positive game, a 3rd and 4 that turned into a false start that backed him up for 3rd and 9. But I still think as a coach, for a guy that's never taken this kick before, I have to give him the opportunity to center it up and not have to worry about kicking right or left, but just down the middle. And so that was my biggest takeaway from the game overall. I felt like Nico's replacement, Aguilar, played very well yesterday. Connor Stockton proving that Lambeau Beck's not the only quarterback in Georgia that can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But Georgia has a dang good running game. And that is what sincerely terrifies me in 2 weeks, is that they are really just as running back by committee as us. Nate Frazier had a pretty good game. But I think, it's at times they were stuffed, but it's gonna be an interesting game in 2 weeks. But right now we're talking about what happened yesterday. So y'all got anything from that 2:30 game?
I will say, when you got teams as far as your Ohio States, your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Texases, that ain't even a word. But when you got teams like that and you're up by 2 touchdowns, figure out a way to be up by 3 or
You gotta
4
put them away.
scores. Yes, put them away. And like you said, the late game situation, I will speak on the late game situation as far as this, because unlike Clemson, who's pretty much on a downfall, Tennessee is on an uprise under Josh Heupel. But this is the Tennessee that we know, that we've seen over the last about almost 20 years. Basically, pretty much after they walked Philip Fulmer out the door. Excuse me. This is the Tennessee that we knew. Find a way to lose a game, and that's what Tennessee did. Also, Heupel did something that he didn't do all game. He ran the ball 3 straight times because and playing not to lose instead of playing to win, getting in your own way. You know what I'm saying? As far as late game, mid game, or late game execution wise, and like you said, not helping your kicker out who hasn't been in that spot before is also, that's not on the kicker as much as you want. You can blame it on the kicker as a casual fan, but that is on your coach. I know the kicker still got to go out there and execute it, but your coach should know he's never done this. Hey, let's line it up in the middle of the field. And he wanted to run a play, but they got a false start. And he's like, you know what? Enough is enough. Let's just go ahead and go into overtime. Okay, cool. But like I said, this is the Tennessee that we've known for almost 20 years, where they find a way to lose a game. Whether it's when they played LSU back in 2010 under Derek Dooley, when they had like 16 players on the field, over exaggerating, it was like 13. Or when they were playing against Florida in 2017, and Florida scores on like a last second Hail Mary touchdown with Felipe Franks threw it up to one of the guys. So like I said, Tennessee will find a way to lose a game before they find a way to win it in the most critical of moments. No matter who's the coach, Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin, you know what I'm saying? Hell, even what's my guy's name? I can't think of his name. Our old DC, Jeremy Pruitt.
Butch
Jeremy
Jones.
Pruitt. No,
I
I already
thought you were
said
gonna
Butch
say
Jones, but
Butch.
yeah, Jeremy
Okay.
Pruitt. Even
Yeah,
under Jeremy
Pruitt.
Pruitt, Tennessee is going to find a way to lose a game. So, and that's what they did. Did they deserve to win? Even Kirby Smart admitted they deserved to win,
Yeah,
and they didn't.
yeah.
But as
If you
far as
saw-
you,
I was about to say, if you saw his post-game interview was kind of like, I really can't even believe we just won, but we have so much to work on that I'm not even focused on the fact that we just won.
yes,
And we should really be grateful that we just walked into Knoxville and we were down by 2 scores for X amount of time and we won.
yes.
And that
also,
was his response.
and I want to say too, Georgia's a pretty young team this year.
Yeah.
But I
Extremely young.
I know a lot of people weren't like sold on Gunnar Stockton. I'm not a fan, but as far as like the team, obviously, but as far as like Gunnar Stockton, I do believe in him, especially with that run game, because we all know how Kirby likes to. As far as Mike Bobo runs the offense, and I think that's another thing too. I think Mike Bobo is holding those guys back. I think they need a play call that knows how to utilize that offense, because I think Mike Bobo is not. Mike Bobo is kind of outdated as far as the scheme goes. But because they got a lot of weapons, like you got Zachariah Brents transfer from USC. You got to find a way to get him. And they got him the ball, but you got to find more creative ways to get him the ball to be more of a difference maker in that game. Scored a big touchdown, but you know what I'm saying? And then like Oscar Delp, I don't know if they thought he was going to be the next coming of Brock Bowers, but that's not it. He's not it. I mean, he's a good tight end, but he's not the next Brock Bowers. Let's not kid ourselves. But like you said, the running back by committee, they're going to keep an eye. They're going to pack a run game, but as far as defense, they showed a lot. You know, Tennessee likes those big receivers because they run that veer and shoot offense, spread everything out wide, and make it hard for the secondary and the linebackers to run down in space and make tackles because they're so far away. But as far as the on the perimeter with the cornerbacks, they showed a lot, and we got guys. Our guys can do the same thing. So, and that's pretty much what I got for UGA. They've pretty much been consistent, but like I said, Tennessee will find a way to Tennessee a game and lose it. And that's my closing remark.
I was able to watch majority of that game to start out. Tennessee came out, I think they scored on their first three possessions. And after that, they got two lags. Everybody celebrating, everybody doing TikTok dances. In Jordan, they just kept scrapping, kept scrapping, kept scrapping, kept scrapping. Even though they was behind, they kept scrapping, kept scrapping. Fourth quarter came, last minutes of the game, like all hundreds of thousands of fans nervous, biting their nails, this, that, and the third. Tennessee get the ball, chopping at the bit, get close to the field goal. The closer they get, the closer they kick a look, and he's scared, walking around, pacing. I'm really finna go kick the field goal, do this, that, and the third. Then I knew he was gonna miss it when somebody called, I think they called a timeout. He was finna go out there. He went back to the sideline to take another practice swing and kick. He went back out there and it went wide right. I said, y'all knew he was gonna miss. They was too nervous. But everybody looking like, what the? Tennessee go out there first. They don't do nothing with the ball. Georgia get the ball first play, run it right down there to the, I want to say 2 or 3 yard line, 5 yard line. Then next play they score. So like y'all say, Tennessee will find a way to lose it before they can win. As far as Tennessee, offensively, they look good. With Aguilar and Brazel out there. Defensively, they look good at times, even though you couldn't really tell with both defenses because it was a high-power offensive game. With Georgia, Hunter Stockton, ain't gonna lie, he impressed me. Even though he had some turnovers, he still showed people that he can throw the ball and can manage the game. Georgia's run offense, they got a mean running offense. They got Nate Frazier and a host of other guys that can tote the rock. Receiver, Zachariah Branch, he's dangerous. If they give him the ball more, he's gonna be a problem. Now, looking ahead to Georgia and Alabama, the biggest matchup that I want to see is in the trenches with Bama's D line and Georgia's O line. And the reason why is because in that Tennessee and Georgia game, Georgia was short some starters, and they still managed to come out on top. I want to see how Bama can execute on that if Georgia is still down their starters on that line. Because that's going to be very crucial on the road to go against an inexperienced O-line and you have an experienced D-line.
And that's funny because like they losing guys and we starting to get guys back at the right time. So yes, that is an interesting point.
And God forbid, Tim Keenan come back for that game. That'll show.
They could have played Saturday. They were game time decision. They did
I think they holding them out.
I think they
did the right
decision.
They did the right thing. Yes.
They hold them out for this game. I think if Tim comes back that game, that's gonna light a fire under the defense. My next take on Georgia, their secondary was very suspect against Tennessee. Now that Bama is past half, and they have 4 receivers, you can down there roll the ball to them, they pick it up, they can make something happen.
And a quarterback. Don't forget, this quarterback can still run. He might not have the Miro, Jalen Hurts, Blake Sims, whatever he may have at legs. This guy still has wheels that can move the chains with his legs. Just enough for us to be like, okay, we're good. So I just want to throw that in there.
And God forbid Jam Miller comes back. I think when he comes back, that offense will look completely different.
And that's why I made that point that I made earlier about like, I don't think we really into it yet because we don't really have the guy that we want to establish the run with yet.
Because he can catch out the backfield as well. That's another component with that offense.
Big time.
So I think if those 2 guys come back,
big time.
it might be a whole different team. But back to UGA and Tennessee, that was a good high power offensive
It
game.
was. It really was. It was good to see as a fan. I don't think we really I think we want to see like good competitive games, and sometimes we see high scoring games like we don't appreciate them the way that we should. You brought up a point about Gunnar Stockton, and I wanted to point out a pass that he made. Well, not any just any pass,
That
but
fourth down
the
pass.
pass that he made on fourth down to tie the game up. And like I was, I made an audible noise when he shot it, because I mean not shot it, but when he threw it, because I mean that's a throw.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You get your one-on-one, you get the coverage that you want, you recognize it, you make the throw. And unlike the kicker, who later would miss the game winner, but for a quarterback, that's a little different. Those are the throws that when you out there by yourself after practice and you got the trash can out there and you throwing that ball into the bucket, like that's that throw that you've been making since you were in high school. That when coach told you you were the backup, like those are the throws that you made into the bucket, to where when you get to a situation like that on fourth and whatever, and they make the play call for you, it feels comfortable because, hey, like I've made this throw 100 times. And we talk about, front pylon throws, back pylon throws, back shoulder throws, window throws, like a couple that we saw from Ty yesterday. But that throw in itself for Gunnar Stockton, game changer, game winner, in my mind, because, they ended up winning the game overall. But yeah, I was very appreciative of the high scoring game. But speaking of high scoring games, our nightcap yesterday was a tale of two tapes. On one hand, we had a high scoring game with a featured SEC team in Texas A&M, who traveled to Indiana to take on the Fighting Irish in Notre Dame. And then we had a battle down in the Bayou with the Florida Gators, coming off a loss from South Florida, took on LSU.
You missing one. I'm gonna let you figure it out. But we had another SEC high scoring affair. I'll let you figure that out.
You talking about Ole Miss and Arkansas?
Oh, Lane Train, yes sir.
Yeah, I didn't really catch that one. I was flipping
I mean,
between Texas and
I had the Motel view on too, so I really,
Yeah.
but every time I seen, I looked like Ole Miss had the ball.
Yeah, I was about to
But,
say y'all have more on that one than I would, but I know between those two highly featured, 6:30 games, there was a compare and contrast. On one hand, defense ruled the world down in its SEC land with Florida and LSU. Lagway, we'll focus on that game first. Lagway, disappointing showing. I think this would be the second straight disappointing showing. Really, in my opinion, the third straight. I don't think there's been a game quite yet where he's looked comfortable. He's looked like a quarterback. He looks like the guy. But, um, you know, 5 interceptions. Me and you were talking about it all throughout the game. We felt like after 3, he should have been pulled.
yeah, like it's
But
time to go get him out of there.
you continue to kill the confidence of the kid. Game day talked about their schedule earlier in that morning, and pretty much said like the gauntlet they're about to go through is uncomparable, unimaginable. It's looking like Florida is probably going to be a 4 or 5 win team right now. And another tough game there. I mean, it's easy to point out the box score, especially with Lagway throwing 5 interceptions. But this was a total team effort. Still, you gave up 20 points at any rate, as a defense. The run game could have probably been established better.
Penalties. Florida's
Penalties,
ached by penalties. That's
you know,
Florida's biggest issue.
and I mean, it's already hard enough to go to Baton Rouge and to come out with a win, but I just don't feel like Florida did anything to help themselves last night. Billy Napier's leash is just getting shorter and shorter, and
It
I
choking
don't,
them.
I don't
That's
think he's gonna make it
That
out
is
of.
an unprepared football team, and that
Yeah,
is not a player issue. And we all know who that is. If your team is unprepared, especially when it comes to those penalties, yes. Especially when it comes to like how are we not fixing this penalty issue? Lagway, yes, he's still he finished the season off with Georgia where Graham Mertz went down in I want to say the Tennessee game last season. So But yes, but at this point, it's like, hey, fire the coach and take your quarterback with you at this point. Because, yeah, it ain't really too much we can say about Florida. That's already been said. They had the toughest schedule last year. Probably got the toughest schedule again this year because it's the opposite of everything except for the Florida-Georgia game, which is always neutral site. All the games that were at home are on the road, and all the games are on the road at home. Now with Texas and how they're looking, they might somebody got to win that game at that point. But they're gonna lose to Miami. No doubt about it. They're going to lose Miami. I don't know if Lambeau Beck turns into a deer in the headlights because he's facing the SEC team, but I think he's comfortable down there. Yeah, I think he's comfortable down there in Miami now more than he is much of what he is at Georgia. Yeah, so they're going to lose that game. They got the bye week. So, like I said last week, he needs to split those two games. He's already lost one. And the way they look Saturday night, they don't even have a moral victory. The only moral victory would have been maybe because, like, I know you pointed out they gave up 20 points, but that was one of the touchdowns was a pick six. So maybe they lose 13-10. But even then, you still hanging your hat because my quarterback turned the ball over 5 times on the road. Now he got to go back on the road again. So against an in-state rival. So there's that. And a team that kicked our, what's last season on our home field in the opener last season. So there's that as well. So it's just like, yeah, it's a dark cloud in Gainesville, man. You fired Dan Mullen after one bad season. Like, this is what you got to deal with. This is your fate. So this is pretty much on the administrations for fumbling the ball on that. I know they was talking about how Mullen didn't like Mullen wasn't really putting heavy emphasis on recruiting and all that, but I don't think Mullen would have had this team. Mullen would have had this team prepared in these last 2 years. I mean, Florida finished the season strong last season. I'll give them credit for that, but Mullen would have had this team prepared these 2 games. And on the flip side for LSU, that defense can only take you so far. I know Brian Kelly was getting fired up in the press conference. Yes, you guys won the game. Oh, yeah, we'll give you credit. Never apologize for winning the game. Most definitely. But at the same time, like Kirby was, how Kirby admitted, like, we shouldn't have won that game. We got so much to work on. I'm more like, stuff like that. Brian Kelly could have took that same approach. Like, our offense is, yeah. Because even like their first 3 games, I don't think they've scored past 24 points. They only scored 17 at Clemson. They scored 23 against Louisiana Tech, and they scored 20. Well, like I said, you take that pick 6 away, they only got 13 points on offense. So you do the math on that. That's 40. That's 53 points in 3 games. That's not good, especially when you got a quarterback that's considered probably could be one of the first quarterbacks taken in the draft next season. Also, a Heisman contending quarterback. As far as the preseason goes, you want this team, a playoff team. Your offense is going to keep you out of the playoffs. So the defense can only get you so far. Now, what's to say you go against a team that got a defense that's good enough to stop you twice, and in them 2 stops, they get 2 scores on you. Then what you gonna do? You're playing from behind by 2 possessions, so it's like, now what? So, yeah. So we already know what Florida got to do, but LSU, yeah, they might be number 3, but that whole top, we can shred that whole top 10 list outside of Ohio State, defending national champion. Even they only beat Ohio by 20, but outside of that, the rest of that top 10 is like, but it's still early, so the season will unfold itself. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I got with those 2.
It was a relatively bland game to me, man. It wasn't anything to write home to mama about, but I think when you see a guy with 5 turnovers in a game, and it sucks, But that's something that Napier, Lagway, offensive coordinator, Florida as a team will have to figure out. On the opposite side of the 6:30 slate was a really, really terrific game that ended up in victory for the Aggies. So Reed led his team to victory. And that was another high-scoring affair. They traded scores. They traded blows. They got defensive stops on both sides when needed. They had star power all over the field. Concepcion had a couple nice grabs. Jeremiah Love had some really nice catches, some really nice runs. He was stopped a couple times. Marcel Reed, Texas A&M, and the Aggies are kind of a hidden dark horse for me in the SEC when it comes to SEC play. I'm not sure how their schedule shapes up or who all they play, but anytime you see Texas A&M on your schedule, especially from the Johnny Manziel era on, it is completely different. You cannot just move past that game. What does that say about Texas A&M beating a team that just went to the national championship last year?
I'll say this. Let me say this. But one, Texas A&M is almost similar to Tennessee, but the thing about Texas A&M is they win games they're really supposed to lose, and they lose games they're supposed to win. You're not supposed to lose to Appalachian State. You're not supposed to lose to, I don't know, whoever, all the other teams they lost to in the Jimbo Fisher era. You're not. You're not supposed to. You should have beaten Texas, to be honest with you. Games like that. And last night, even though, a bobble snap, but who's to say they don't go on to overtime and win the game, even though, because they basically would have just tied the game if, our favorite quarterback in Alabama history, Tyler Burton, didn't bobble that snap. But Marcel Reed, the numbers as far as the completion percentage doesn't look nice, but he's a guy that I really wasn't sold on, I will say, going on into the season. But I think after that game, the guy is growing on me because this is a sophomore quarterback going on a road in an environment like that. Like you said, Dre, a team, the national runner-up, and taking them down in their house, making a big play on a fourth down, not just like fourth and goal from like the 1 yard line or the 2 yard line. They were like 15. Yeah, they were like 12, 15 yards out. So in a play like that, shouts out to the offensive coordinator as well. Find your biggest target on the offensive.
Go get him.
Yeah, and find it. Yeah, in the tight end, box him out, basically like basketball, and you just come down with the catch. So
that's 100% what he did.
Marcel Reed made some plays. Concepcion made some plays. I know Bussy made some plays in the running back, Le'Veon Moss. So, yes, Texas A&M, it will be a sneaky team, but also Texas A&M will be a team that loses games they're supposed to win, hence why they earned the nickname Texas 8-4. So, be on the lookout for that. Like, I don't know their remaining schedule. I know they got Auburn coming up.
They got Auburn. They got Auburn, Mississippi State,
another sneaky team,
and Florida all at home. So they could be looking at 6-0 before they even go back on the road. That's what we're talking about. That even, I think that's actually Auburn. Okay, so in 2 weeks, and I know I'm jumping here, but in 2 weeks we have two very critical games in the SEC. We got Georgia, Bama, but Texas A&M and Auburn is going to be a good game in 2 weeks because they're both undefeated. They're both ranked. That will have big implications for them in playoffs and the conference.
I want to throw this in too. It's another game that day too. I just looked at the schedule. Ole Miss and LSU play on that day as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Very big games.
Yeah, this is one of those. That's one of those weekends. Is like, turn my phone off. Please do not bother me. Please, for nothing. Like, so that's one of those weekends. And we all know Alabama and Georgia, they're already scheduled. That game is going to be the nightcapper. So there's that. So all the other games, just get in where you fit in. But yes.
So beyond realistically those three games, having to go on the road against Arkansas and LSU, I could really see, even with Missouri, South Carolina, Sanford, and Texas, I could see Texas A&M coming out of the schedule on one loss or 3 losses, and there's no in between.
Like I said, Texas 8-4.
I think they can beat Texas, but that's something that, I think that's going to be the end of our discussion as far as.
And that South Carolina game is tricky because that's one of the games that pretty much kept them out of possibly still getting into that 12-team playoff. They lost that game handily and then went on to lose to Texas. Even with a win versus Texas, they still could have gotten to the SEC championship. But I didn't think they were going to beat Texas that night. But this year is a different story. So that South Carolina game is tricky. You know what I'm saying? That's one of those games they should look at as like, yeah, this team pretty much knocked us out of the playoff, even though we didn't handle our business earlier in the season. But this game right here, this is the game late, pretty much ended our chances of getting into the playoffs. But yeah, with that schedule, yes, they have a chance to make a run and be a dark horse SEC contender. And as far as Notre Dame, I'll go on the Notre Dame side. I know that people are trying to call for Marcus Freeman. I'm not one for that. But I will. My hatred for Notre Dame runs deep, but I'm going to put that aside. But I'm going to just be honest. Unless they find some teams that can go on a run and get on the schedule and be ranked, Notre Dame is not making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, you just played your 2 toughest games to start the year.
And you didn't split them at all. Like their next biggest game, honestly, it's just a good Arkansas team. They're not ranked, but it's a good Arkansas team, but that's not going to be a quality enough of a win. On the road, they're going on the road, but yeah.
And at best, after that, USC.
Yeah, nah. So yeah, they beat USC at home last season. So, but yeah, they're not going back to the playoffs, and this is one of the reasons why. This is one of those seasons where being in a conference Notre Dame would have helped.
Really helps. Really helps.
Yeah. So, but that's pretty much all I got as far as Notre Dame. Texas A&M was going to keep building on this, but like I said, Notre Dame season is pretty much, as far as a national scale, it's pretty much done. Like, just get ready for next season, honestly. Play out the schedule and get ready for next season.
Yeah, I really don't too much care for Notre Dame, so I focus on Texas A&M. Their schedule, like you said, they can go 6-0 up until they go to Arkansas. I don't see Auburn beating Auburn. Oh, let me look at Auburn. Auburn. They beat Baylor, who really don't know how to play defense.
And they got a defensive head coach, was the funniest thing about it. Baylor, that is.
Be a team that don't know how to play, defense.
They're going to lose to Oklahoma. They're going to lose to Oklahoma, man. And the word on the street yesterday, oh my bad, keep going, man. I keep cutting you off.
Ball State, man, really nobody. USA, South Alabama, they've been running for their money. Major Applewhite, head coach. His offense is very tricky. They have Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I see them losing the 2 games. But back to Texas A&M. They have the opportunity to go 6-0 and possibly 7-0. I don't think they'll lose to Arkansas. Their biggest test will be LSU, but Missouri may be a trap game too, because let's just say they beat LSU and they go to Missouri. I already know that's going to be an 11 o'clock game. That's going to be a trap game for them. Then they can finish out. I think they'll beat South Carolina, Sanford. If Arch continues playing how he's playing, they'll win. Last night they looked good. Both offensively and defensively. Defensively, even though they gave up 40 points, they still held them to where their team was able to score more points. Offensively, Marcel Reed looks good. Concepcion looks good. Malta looks good. So if Texas A&M can continue playing consistent football and try to average at least 40 a game, that's going to be hard to do. They can come out with 1 or even 2 losses this season. I don't see them with their schedule. I don't see them losing 3. But that if they do lose 3, it'll be that trap game with Missouri. Other than that, they did a good job, man.
Well, it's a good thing you brought up Mr. Manning, because that is our steak and potatoes for today's episode. As we are the Elephant in the Room podcast, and we would usually end with something. We would usually end with something Alabama related, but today the elephant in the room is Arch Manning. Concerns all around Texas, to be honest. I sent the video to Ant last week of Sarkisian being a little upset per se about the reporter even asking about injury concerns when it comes to Arch, and I think it's pretty obvious. The eye in the sky never lies. That's something that we have all heard before, and it does not lie. We saw a grimace from Arch last week. We saw a pretty poor performance this week, and in week 1, traveling to Ohio. Somebody that I preseason had to be my Heisman winner and possibly national champion, man. My prediction.
You fell for the bait, man. You fell for the bait, man.
Was just going all down the drain, and I mean, I bought into the hype because of
me too.
I bought into the hype for underlying reasons, but not even really focusing on Texas as a school or overall, but Arch different polar opposite from, I think what we thought we would see from Ty Simpson right now is what Texas fans are seeing in Arch Manning. Has to be some greater concern there that he may not be the guy to lead them to a national championship, or is it the system? Or is there some type of condition or pain? And we have all played on football teams where somebody on our team at some point in time was injured and the rest of the world did not know about it, but we did because we walked around the locker rooms with these players.
You remember when
And
Milrow
so,
was supposedly injured last year, and I hate I brought
right.
that name up, but there's
Yeah.
that. But he wasn't. But there's that.
So, any concerns that Arch is injured? Any concerns that Arch is not talented, or are there any concerns that the system that is designed in Texas is just not for Arch?
I
This
don't necessarily think it's my bad. I don't necessarily think it's the system because Sark, like Lane Kiffin, they have plays designed to where you know who's going to be open no matter what covers they run. Just say like if you get a post route with a deep crosser, okay, now we finna pick on the safety. If the safety jumps up on the deep crosser, we're throwing it to the post. If he plays back and take the post, we're throwing a deep crosser. So he has plays like that for situations like this. It's just I don't know, man. I think it's just coming down to Arch because even I know Quinn Ewers kind of struggled, but Quinn Ewers made plays. Quinn Ewers walked into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama with that same offensive coordinator. Might not have been the same weapons, but that same offensive coordinator. So I don't
that's
really think it's Sark calling plays. I think it's more of I don't know if it's the skill guys. I don't know if it's these guys are bought in. I don't know if it's because this is the negative effects of giving all these players this money, and now you putting them in all these fancy cars and stuff like that. Now they they really haven't earned it per se. And this is the negative of that versus a team like Ohio State who want to go out there and cash out on their players because they brought the hardware back the previous season. So that's the way I see it. I don't necessarily think it's a system.
and
That's pretty
that's the
much.
question that I had. Does he have the skilled players around? Because when Quentin Ewers was at Texas, he had Worthy. What was the big
Bijan
tight end?
Robinson for a year. Yeah, Bijan Robinson for a year.
Robinson,
Jaden Blue.
Jaden Blue. He had the tight
Isaiah
end. I forgot his
Bond.
name. He didn't really
Yeah,
play for it.
he didn't, but
Bond. So I wonder, does he have the talent
Matthew
around?
Golden. Can't forget Matthew Golden, but yeah.
So is it really him or does he have the talent? Because I'm looking at the receiving stats. I think Parker Livingstone is the leading receiver. And I thought Ryan Wingo was supposed to be the guy for Texas. So is it the receiving? Does he have the weapons or is he hurt? Now, as far as the system, it can't be the system. Cause Mac Jones is literally a pocket quarterback. And Sark did some amazing things with Mac Jones in 2020 when he was at Alabama. He had some stuff drawn, literally. So I don't think it's the system. I think he's either hurt or he just doesn't have the supporting cast. Cause, and I hate to bring up the past, but put Ewers in this same situation. I think he struggles as well.
Ewers had his struggles even with some of those guys. Ewers really had his struggles with some of those guys, so I'll give you that one.
So
But as far as Texas,
I think he either hurt or he just gonna have the cast around. It gotta be that. It has to.
And what's the schedule looking like? I know they got Florida, they got Sam Houston, and like I said, Alabama can't take nobody for granted. They just went out there and beat one of the worst teams that we've known in FBS history, and they only beat them 27-10. UTEP Miners. Now they got Sam Houston State, so it's like, okay, what are we expecting from this game? Quinn Ewers gets booed by his own fans at that game going into the locker room. Yeah, excuse me. Arch Manning gets booed. I mean, he got some boos too, but Arch Manning gets booed going into the locker room at halftime of that game. Now you coming back, you playing a proverbial another tune-up game versus Sam Houston State just down the road in Huntsville, Texas. What is that game going to look like? What is that game going to entail? Then you get the bye week, I think. Then you get Florida. And then we all know the Red River Showdown. And Oklahoma, they have an offense and a defense. I don't. Yeah, and you remember when I say I wouldn't be surprised if Texas had like 2 or 3 losses. Now I'm pushing it. I don't want to be surprised if I know we call Texas A&M Texas 8-4, but I won't be surprised if Texas adopts that name alongside them and be Texas 8-4 because we've seen this before. We crown a team as a national champion. We crown a quarterback as a Heisman contender, and they fail to even meet the expectations. Like they don't even compete for it. They don't even play in a quality bowl game. And the last time we saw that, as far as my memory, is a USC team in 2012. A lot of experts picked USC to win the national championship that season. Matthew Barkley was going to win the Heisman, and they finished 7-6. Now, will I say Texas finishes 7-6? No, Barge Manning is definitely not going to be in New York. The way Texas is looking, I don't think they're going to win a championship. There's that.
Florida might sneak and beat them. They in the swamp.
If Lagway doesn't turn the ball over 5 times, the way their defense plays, most definitely. Know. So, and they got Georgia again this year. So, like I said, yeah, and I know you saw when we did our first show. I know you was talking about how pretty much Sark is under a little bit of fire because we invested all this money. We want a return on our investment. So, I know you said something about that in the first show. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And I think it's a combination of both. I think Arch is hurt, and I think it's more of the skill more than it is the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I don't know if you got any closing remarks? I don't.
I was going to say, well, issues abroad. Go ahead. Before I close.
You go ahead. I'm gonna say mine, man.
I was just gonna say, issues abroad for a lot of teams. South Carolina looks to be in trouble. Alabama at one point was in trouble. Notre Dame in big trouble. Clemson in big trouble. This is the controlled chaos that we as fans wanted. The expanded playoffs going up to 12 is for this exact reason. We wanted to see more excitement. I think we were starting to see some really boring games at some points in college, but now we got so much controlled chaos going on, and so much for viewers to look at. So much for the I don't even know, what do they call the board, the college football bracket, whatever. The people that make that bracket, the committee. So much for them to look at, and still we just in week 3. So much football left to be played, but it sounds like I'm gonna let him close out since he got the last thing to say, and I'm gonna see what he do with it. So, big brother, close us out pretty well here with your closing remarks, and then take us on out, man.
Closing remarks. This deal with HBCU football. Shouts out to my alma mater, Alabama State. Got the first home opener win at home against Miles College. 37-9 on yesterday. Andrew Body continues to do a great job for the Hornets. I think this week, they play FAMU. I don't think we ever beat FAMU at home under Coach E-Rob's tenure. They go down there and handle business with FAMU. Then they will go to play. Either way, whoever they go down there and play, I expect them to win. In closing, that's pretty much it. In advance, I would like to thank all of the listeners and viewers for hearing out the Let Me Say This podcast / Elephant in the Room edition. That's it.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, baby.
Roll Tide, go Hornets.
Cool, damn.
And hold on. There we go. And we're out.